Women Employed is a national organization based in Chicago that advocates on behalf of women for pay equity, against sexual harassment, and for job opportunities. Ladky is the executive director since 1985 and essentially has built the organization, and recently was asked by Mayor Rahm Emanuel to chair the Chicago Working Families Task Force. I'm Mike Fouché, publisher of Aldertrack, and this is our Chicago Influencer Series, where we meet with and talk with policymakers and implementers about how Chicago city government affects the way they do their business. So, Ms. Ladky, tell us more about what you think the Working Families Task Force is supposed to do.
Our job on the task force is really to focus on the situation for working families, individuals who are trying to balance and deal with work, the demands of work and potentially school as well as family, and figure out how we can adopt some policies or start some programs that will really support workers in maintaining their focus on family and being good employees.
Are there any specific things that you hope to come out of this task force?
Well, definitely we're charged by the mayor with coming out with some specific recommendations for him and obviously the city council. And whereas I think on some of the issues we're focused on, like paid sick time, there's been much more discussion. There's a draft ordinance there. We're not charged with coming up with ordinances, but that is right there in the middle of our discussion. On other issues like scheduling practices, worker supports like paid family leave and access to dependent care, there's a wider range of possibilities for the things that we could recommend. So we might recommend some policy changes. We might recommend that the city could give incentives for certain kinds of programs and initiatives on the part of employers. So the floor is pretty open for us.
So what is the state of the working environment for women in Chicago right now? Are there specific areas we should be concerned about?
Well, there are certainly issues for women up and down the employment spectrum. Our focus at Women Employed is really on the women who earn less than the median income, so less than about 30-some thousand a year. Often these are women whose incomes are either the sole income in the family or a substantial portion. So their incomes are really important to family well-being in the city. At the same time, many of the jobs that they're in retail, restaurants, healthcare, and so on, have become increasingly volatile. They may be hourly jobs, but individuals don't know how many hours they're going to get. They may have great difficulty finding consistent childcare because their hours are inconsistent. They have difficulty enrolling in school because they don't know when they're going to work, or their wages are just too low to give them the stability they need to pursue further education or training. So these are some of the really difficult issues. They are in workplaces where, for example, if you have 3 absences, you may be subject to termination no matter what. If you have a sick child, that's a pretty hard policy to live up to. So we're trying to figure out how to come up with some things that strike a balance between the needs of employers, but not putting all the burden of flexibility and labor supply onto that individual employee and her family. So that's the way in which Women Employed's work for women is really so deeply related to what we're talking about in the task force.
Do women have really all that different concerns in the workplace for men, or are they more of a canary in the coal mine for overall workplace concerns?
Well, probably both. I would say that women are, in any job they work in any occupational category, they are paid less than men. So there's always a pay issue in terms of comparability with men. They are also the majority of workers in these lower wage industries that have less stable employment. So they are the ones who call it canary in the coal mine, call it the majority of people affected by these changes in the way work is organized. But definitely women are very much on the front lines of these problems, and because they are still traditionally the caregivers in their families, that adds a whole layer of difficulty and complexity for them.
So as the economy becomes, and particularly in Chicago, becomes more service-oriented, and we begin to have things like the Uber economy where it's very contractual relationships, even things like having maid services are contractual businesses now. How does that affect what it is that you do and what you think the outcome is going to be for the average working woman?
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. The way our economy is going in Chicago, low-wage jobs are growing faster by a very substantial margin than other jobs in the economy. So we have to deal with the fact that we aren't going to educate our way out of low-wage work. We're going to have to improve the quality of those jobs, and women do them. So that's enormously important. And so we see this as an issue for women and for the future of and the health of the city's economy.
But as the demand for these kind of jobs increases, what can be done to affect the livelihood of individual workers?
Well, there are a lot of things that employers can do to create stability. So even in a service economy where we are going to have growth in certain industries that are characterized by low-wage jobs that may have quality issues, we have examples that researchers and business school professors are pointing out of companies that have a different operating model, and they have shown that their profitability and good care of employees can go hand in hand. So we've seen those examples in restaurant, we've seen it in retail, so we know it can be done. What we can do, I think, are a couple things. One, we can raise the floor public policy-wise. And so that's what we're doing in terms of the minimum wage. We're simply saying there's a floor below which employers can't go. We hope to get there on allowing employees to earn sick time. We certainly need to go there probably on scheduling. We'll see. But there's that range of issues where we need to raise the floor. At the same time, we need to work with employers to help them see that they can have business success and treat their employees decently. This is clearly possible. It may mean a change in the way these businesses operate, but it's possible, and we have to show businesses how they can do it. They may need support or incentives from government to do that, but ultimately we need to make job quality a business advantage in addition to raising the floor.